So I'm gonna get you started today. I'm gonna do a this is a graph, and what I do is I measure out the house, the exterior, the roof line basically, and notate everything on the graph. Basically, do an outline of your home, and then at that point we'll sit down once I do the graph, and then I'll go in on the interior and do the inspection. So that way, you know exactly what I'm doing, and you can see what findings I've found at that time. So what I've done is done the preliminary graph of the house. I hadn't really started the inspection yet. I want to make sure we get the outline of everything. What I'm going to do now is I'm going around and I'm making notes. Anything that's wood to ground contact that's against the home, like the wood fence, mainly the post itself. If it's in contact with in the ground and it's up next to the house, it has to be listed on there as far as wood to ground contact. So that's the notes I'm making right now. A lot of times you have this wood here, as you see right here. Sorry, sometimes I have to damage it a little bit after it's already been messed up, but this just shows you how water's been leaking in here. As you can see, my knife's going straight into it. The wood acts like a sponge. If it gets any cracks in it, like this back here, it's been absorbing water, so it starts expanding, and once it heats up, the water comes out. But that's the result of it, is moisture damage. So any areas like that I'm going to notate as well, and I basically try not to stick my knife in any further than I need to, but same thing right here. This piece of wood here, a little bit of moisture damage on that as well, so I notate that. Looking for the same thing here as far as the wood. It's you don't have any moisture problems here with this. Little cracks here, but nothing major. Caulking usually helps resolve that, but to avoid any moisture in the future. And the one thing I'm doing is, you have this crack that runs down through here. It runs all the way down underneath this. So if you can visualize this crack going underneath this exterior stone, that's a possibility or possible area of termite activity, because they come up through little cracks like this, so we're also taking a good look at that. And as we go down, it's kind of the same thing. This slab is poured last after the slab for the garage, so when this slab is poured, it's kind of the same thing. This crack extends underneath this here. So when we're inside, we want to make sure we do a good inspection there and make sure there's no moisture or previous termite activity or active termites at this point. Oh, that wood looks good. This one area here, you've got your stone that comes down as a facing on the house. Right in this area here, this is your foundation wall. I'm hitting my knife. Anytime you have dirt in this area as well, you always want to look for termites. Come up behind the stone. That's the problem a lot of times with exterior finishes that they put on here, but they'll come up and try to get to this wood here, but that looks good right now as I'm looking down through here. Also there. Alright. This here, anytime you have, as I said with the fence over there, you've got wood to ground contact. This is a part of the home, basically by the roof of it being having the roof over it, and being a covered patio area or deck area. And this wood here, I always want to dig around it as you see, the wood's kind of coming apart because it takes on a lot of moisture from the soil. So any wood that's in contact, whether it's the lattice, this landscape timbers, or the actual support, I always want to notate that as wood to ground contact. Basically, an area that's conducive to termite activity. Right. This right here, the problem that you have over here, this is in kind of the same area. It's on the back side of the covered deck area. They put the landscape timber, you got your retaining wall here to keep the soil from eroding, which is a good thing, but then you take this board right here and you run it straight down. Well, it's up against the house, and these things, even though they're pressure treated, a lot of times when they first install them, anything wood product's going to break down. So this is an area of concern as well. We're going to list this as a wood to ground contact. And like I said, the landscape timbers run all out here, and even underneath me here to my left, it's even touching the wood siding, so as well as down there. So we'll make sure we notate all this. Let's see. This looks like there's been some ants here at one time. If there's anything now, but the wood itself, this landscape timber just eventually breaks down, as you can see. I mean, that's a perfect example. It starts breaking down. Any time it's got moisture content, that's what termites are looking for. So we'll come down here. Well, as I said, in my job, sometimes I have to tear things apart to make sure that we don't have termites, but I'm going to pull this apart and just lift it up.
Kinds of stuff right there.
Right here. Not that. That right there, if you can see it, is an active termite. This little guy, not the dirt, of course, but the little guy crawling around in my hand right there, that's active termite. And like I said, they get in here in this wood and they eat it. I mean, that's what they've done to it. So it just, like any kind of wood on your home, as I was showing with the wood to ground contact up against the house, those landscape timbers over there are going to eventually break down if they haven't already, and that's what you're going to get. As you can see right here, there's another termite in front of my knife there. So they've already, this is the bottom of this landscape timber at one time. Watch this, there should be more under here. We definitely know they're here, but there's the one again. But this is all wood material that they've broken down. But it just lets you know that they're definitely here. That's what we're dealing with. What I'm going to do now, since I found the active termites there, is I'm going to draw a little small diagram off the porch there, and just show the landscape timber that had the active termites in it. And AIST is active infestation subterranean termites, which is also down here. Everything's abbreviated that's going to be on my graph. So okay, so show that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is another landscape timber that's here against the house. As you can see, it's starting to break down. It's starting to retain a lot of moisture, and if you look at the end of it, that's what's been happening to it. It's been breaking down, being right here in the soil. Always recommend getting these away from the home, because they are listed as conducive conditions. So, because the siding's so low, you really can't inspect underneath it unless you dig it out. So that's what I'm going to do here. Make sure there's no termite tunnels. I don't see any right now. Good. Okay. But still, the issue is the landscape timbers being up against the house and with the siding as well. As you see here on my graph, I've notated the 5 areas of the support wall as it steps down. The one issue that we also have is here in this area underneath. It's hard to see, but and then up there, it's called siding less than 6 inches. So if you can't visibly see without digging underneath, digging underneath the siding, that's a potential area of termite activity. So we want to make sure we notate that on the graph as well. This right here is kind of the same thing as what we were dealing with around front. You have a landscape timber, and your previous owner here was pretty happy with these things, and they look good, of course, but they do cause issues with termite activity, and as well as ants get underneath there and can build homes, also. My issue with it is, number one, it's wood to ground contact. It's up against the house. The other issue is, as you can see, the siding, the lowest piece of siding back here behind my knife, where my knife is, it goes below this one, and it goes below these landscape timbers. So that's also an area of concern. If you can't inspect it, you don't know what's there. So what I'm looking at here is kind of the same thing that we were dealing with the front deck. Is anytime you have support posts that are in contact with the soil, you want them to be in concrete, which this one is. Okay, so you want to have concrete on each side, and basically is a footer for this to sit on so that it doesn't sink down and collapse. So you want to always check every one of them, make sure that we're hitting the support of the concrete. And before this thing was built, all of this is what we call cross ties, and this all should have been removed. This is also a major area of concern as far as termite activity. And then you